He brought his girlfriend to our anniversary dinner and told me she was the replacement. What he didn't know was that she would never see him again after that night. "Meet the replacement," Mark said with a self-satisfied smirk, his hand resting with a sense of ownership on the small of her back. Those 3 words sliced through the elegant ambiance of the Golden Oak, shattering the 12th anniversary celebration I had spent the last 2 months meticulously arranging. 12 years of a shared life, of a marriage, all boiled down to a single brutal introduction on a night that was supposed to belong to us. Hey, wonderful people, your encouragement is what keeps this channel going. Help me hit my next major goal by clicking that subscribe button. It costs you nothing, helps me out immensely, and you will never miss another story. Let us get into it. I just watched as they took their seats directly across from me. Her name was Tiffany, and her perfectly styled platinum blonde hair seemed to drink in the candlelight as she gracefully slid into the chair that should have been occupied by my husband. Mark, of course, sat right beside her, his hand immediately reaching for the bottle of 1995 Napa Valley Cabernet I had specially ordered, our traditional anniversary wine. The sheer audacity, his casual confidence, it was almost stunning. He genuinely believed he held all the cards, that he was the master of this moment. If only he had any idea. What Mark could not possibly fathom as he poured 3 glasses of the deep red wine with a practiced, elegant flair was that Tiffany's chic emerald cocktail dress would be the last thing she ever wore in his presence. The warm, low lighting of the restaurant glinted off the sapphire heirloom bracelet encircling her delicate wrist. My grandmother's bracelet, the one that had vanished without a trace from my jewelry box 4 months ago. How strangely appropriate that she chose tonight of all nights to display her trophy. "I think we should just clear the air," Mark announced, his voice carrying that familiar, commanding tone he had honed to perfection in corporate boardrooms. "No point in dragging this out with drawn-out, messy proceedings. The legal papers will be on your desk by morning." Tiffany shifted a little in her seat, a flicker of unease in her eyes. Maybe she was picking up on something in my unnervingly serene posture. She was young, barely 26, but certainly old enough to have known better, old enough to grasp that certain boundaries are not meant to be crossed, and old enough to bear the consequences of her actions. "Of course," I replied, my hand perfectly steady as I lifted my wine glass. "To new chapters." The bitter irony of my toast was completely lost on both of them. Mark actually smiled, visibly relieved at how maturely I was supposedly taking this. He had always underestimated me. He mistook my quiet nature for weakness, my patience for passivity. The next couple of hours were going to fundamentally re-educate him. Every single second that ticked by on the ornate clock near the bar was bringing us closer to the instant their smug, perfect little world would detonate. The groundwork had been laid. The pieces had been moving across the board for months, while they were off enjoying their clandestine meetings and planning this grand, humiliating reveal. I had been orchestrating something far more complex, far more final. I excused myself to the restroom, maintaining a flawless composure as I felt their gazes fixed on my back. The emerald green dress I was wearing, once Mark's favorite, suddenly felt less like clothing and more like a suit of armor. In the gilded mirror of the opulent bathroom, I inspected my reflection. Not a single strand of hair was out of place. My makeup, carefully applied hours ago, was still impeccable. The woman looking back at me appeared polished, poised, and profoundly dangerous. Tonight was not just marking the end of my marriage, it was the dawn of something entirely new. Tiffany would, in fact, never lay eyes on Mark again after this evening, but not for any of the reasons one might imagine. As I made my way back to the table, I let a small, private smile touch my lips. Sometimes, the most satisfying revenge is the one that unfolds before a captive audience. The night was far from over, and I had a detailed itinerary for them both. I resumed my seat, watching them exchange a look of shared confidence over the rims of their wine glasses. My phone vibrated silently inside my clutch, right on cue. In precisely 25 minutes, the entire foundation of their little fantasy would begin to fracture. Mark was about to learn the true, devastating definition of a replacement. And Tiffany... Well, Tiffany was about to discover that some roles come with a price too high to pay. "Tell me, Tiffany," I began, leaning forward just enough to command her attention. "How long have you been wearing my grandmother's bracelet?" The color instantly drained from both of their faces. A cold, deeply gratifying satisfaction settled in my chest. This was only the first domino. By the time the clock struck midnight, their world would be a smoldering ruin. The head waiter approached our table with a practiced, discreet grace, holding a sealed manila envelope. "Right on schedule, madam," he said, presenting it to me with a subtle bow. "As you requested." Mark's brow furrowed, a line of confusion creasing his forehead. He had not realized that I was the one quietly directing this entire evening's performance. It was almost comical how he still believed this dinner was his grand idea. I took my wine glass one last time, savoring the delicate balance of the moment. "Shall we?" I asked, my voice soft. With deliberate, almost theatrical slowness, I opened the envelope, acutely aware of Mark's increasingly anxious gaze. A flood of memories from our shared past washed over me as I drew out the contents. A stack of photographs, a sheaf of documents, and a small USB drive that made Tiffany's perfectly glossed lips part in a silent gasp. "What is all this?" Mark demanded, his boardroom confidence finally beginning to show cracks. "History," I replied simply, laying the first photograph on the crisp, white tablecloth. It was from our wedding day 12 years ago. We looked so young, radiant, impossibly in love. "Do you remember the vows you made that day, Mark?" His jaw clenched. Of course he remembered. Mark never forgot a single detail. It was part of what made him such a formidable CEO. That same meticulous memory had, once upon a time, made him an incredibly thoughtful husband, one who never missed an anniversary, who remembered every preference, every tiny detail that had made our marriage feel so solid. "That is ancient history," he said, trying to dismiss it, but his eyes lingered on the image. I laid out a second photograph. This one was from 2 years prior, a corporate banquet where I first felt that gut-wrenching prickle of suspicion. Mark's hand, resting just a fraction of a second too long on his executive assistant's shoulder. Not Tiffany, her predecessor. That was when the pattern had truly begun. 6 months after this picture was taken, I continued, placing another photo on the table. "You started staying late at the office every Tuesday and Thursday. You told me it was for the big expansion in Chicago." I turned my gaze to Tiffany, whose confident smirk had completely vanished. Interesting timing, wasn't it? That is precisely when you were hired as the new junior analyst. Mark's face darkened. "If you are trying to make a scene..." "Oh no," I interrupted, my voice still soft but now edged with steel. "I am not making anything. I am revealing. There is a very important difference." I pulled another document from the envelope. Bank statements. Just like how you revealed our marriage was over tonight, I am revealing how you have been siphoning millions in company funds through a network of shell corporations for the last 18 months. The wine glass in his hand froze halfway to his lips. Tiffany's eyes widened, darting frantically between Mark and the damning papers on the table. "You always said I did not understand the complexities of your work," I went on, each word a carefully placed stone in the wall I was building around him. "But you forgot one very crucial detail, my darling. Before I became your wife, I was one of the top forensic accountants in the country. Those late nights you spent with Tiffany? I spent mine following your digital and paper trails. The exhaustion of those sleepless nights came rushing back. Each discovery, each new betrayal had been another crack in the foundation of our life together. But instead of breaking me, they had forged something else. Every lie, every deceit had been sharpened into a weapon for my arsenal. "Those lavish gifts you have been showering on Tiffany," I said, my gaze locking with hers. "The bracelet you stole from my family's collection to give her, the penthouse apartment in the city, the offshore account opened in her name. They are all directly, and I mean directly, traceable to embezzled funds from Summit Dynamics." Tiffany's face was now a mask of pale horror. "Mark, you told me those funds were a private investment. You said—" "Quiet," he snapped, but it was too late. The first crack in their united front had splintered wide open. I pulled one last photo from the envelope. This one was from 6 months ago, at the company's annual charity gala. We were smiling for the cameras, the perfect power couple. It was the last moment I could remember that had felt even remotely happy, or so I had thought at the time. "You remember this night, don't you? It was the very same night you authorized the transfer of $70 million to an untraceable account in the Cayman Islands." Mark's hand was visibly shaking now, though he tried to conceal it by setting down his wine glass. "Whatever you think you have found." "Oh, I found everything," I said, finally letting the full force of my conviction enter my voice. "Every single transaction, every fake invoice, every falsified report. Did you really think I spent the last year just sitting at home, playing the part of the dutiful, clueless wife?" The memories of our early years together, the genuine ones, surfaced unbidden: lazy Sunday mornings in bed, spontaneous trips to the coast, the small, thoughtful gestures that had once made our love feel invincible. But beneath that golden veneer lay the ugly truth I had spent a year unearthing. A man so utterly consumed by greed and ego that he had willingly torched everything we had ever built together. "Your father always warned you about me," I mused, watching a storm of emotions play across Mark's crumbling facade. "He said someone with my background in financial crimes investigation would never be a suitable corporate wife." He was right, wasn't he? Just not in the way he thought. Tiffany started to push her chair back, but I raised a hand to stop her. I would not leave just yet. "The 2 FBI agents standing in the restaurant lobby might have some questions for you about those offshore accounts in your name." The blood drained from Mark's face as the final, horrifying realization dawned on him. All those months he thought he was so cleverly hiding his affairs, both personal and financial, he'd actually been meticulously weaving the rope for his own hanging. "You see," I continued, sliding the USB drive across the polished wood of the table, "this little device contains everything the federal investigators will need to completely unravel your entire criminal enterprise. And thanks to your rather dramatic choice of venue tonight, we have an abundance of witnesses to establish that you voluntarily and publicly received this evidence. The past year of pain, betrayal, and painstaking planning had crystallized into this one perfect moment. Every late night spent deciphering ledgers, every tear shed over a discovered lie, every single moment of humiliation had led to this beautiful convergence of justice and revenge. The silence at our table was absolute. I watched as Mark's perfectly tailored facade disintegrated, revealing the man I had truly married. Not the charming, ambitious CEO who had swept me off my feet at a legal conference 13 years ago, but a cold, calculating manipulator who had seen me as nothing more than a convenient asset. "You don't know what you are talking about," he tried, but his voice was a weak, reedy version of its usual authority. "Your position at Summit Dynamics was handed to you by your father," I finished for him. "The same father who built that company from the ground up. The same one who warned you about marrying someone with my particular set of skills." I turned to Tiffany, whose designer dress now seemed to hang on her like a shroud. "Did he ever tell you about his background, Tiffany? About how he was actually the third choice for CEO, only securing the position after the 2 other top candidates mysteriously had to withdraw their applications?" Tiffany's perfectly manicured fingers were clutching her purse in a white-knuckled grip. She had come from the marketing department, a meteoric rise through the ranks that had raised some eyebrows, but not nearly as many as it should have. Her resume, as my investigation had revealed, was a work of fiction, listing degrees from Ivy League universities and references from influential executives, all of it carefully fabricated. "Your real name isn't even Tiffany, is it?" I said softly, watching her composure finally shatter. "It is Svetlana Sokolov. You graduated from a small community college in Michigan, and you have changed your identity 3 times in the last 5 years. You have played this exact role before, haven't you? The ambitious young ingenue who helps a married CEO embezzle funds before vanishing with her share of the profits." Mark's head snapped toward her, genuine, unadulterated shock on his face. For all his supposed cunning, he had been played just as thoroughly as he had tried to play me. The irony was almost too rich. "I was a federal prosecutor before I ever switched to corporate law," I continued, my voice calm and steady, addressing them both. "I specialized in white-collar crime. That is actually how Mark and I first met. I was investigating his father's company for potential securities fraud." I allowed myself a small, nostalgic smile. Mark was so charming, so seemingly transparent. He helped me prove the allegations were baseless. I thought he was different from the corrupt executives I usually prosecuted. The ambient chatter of the restaurant seemed to fade away as I leaned forward. "But you weren't different, were you, Mark? You were just better at hiding it. When we got married, you made sure I took a position at a private firm, far away from any possible oversight of Summit Dynamics activities. You encouraged me to focus on mergers and acquisitions rather than forensic accounting. Every single career move you ever suggested for me was designed to lead me further away from discovering what you truly were." Svetlana, or Tiffany, was now visibly trembling, her eyes darting toward the restaurant's entrance where 2 men in dark conservative suits had just appeared. "Your father was right about one thing," I said, watching Mark's face. My background made me uniquely qualified to understand corporate fraud. But he was dead wrong about me being unsuitable. I was exactly what this situation required. I reached into my clutch and withdrew one final document. This is a copy of my resignation letter from my firm, submitted this morning, effective immediately. I will be returning to the Department of Justice's White-Collar Crime Division. I stood up, smoothing down my emerald dress. They were particularly interested in my intimate, first-hand knowledge of Summit Dynamics operations. The look of pure betrayal on Mark's face was almost comical. He had arranged this dinner to publicly humiliate me, to flaunt his young mistress and declare me obsolete. Instead, he had walked directly into a meticulously laid trap, years in the making. "Agent Miller will want to speak with you both," I said, nodding toward the approaching federal agents. "I would suggest you cooperate. Your father's influence won't be able to help you this time, Mark. The board of directors received copies of all the evidence an hour ago." As I turned to leave, I caught my own reflection in the large window overlooking the street. The woman staring back bore little resemblance to the trusting bride from 12 years ago, or even to the successful corporate lawyer I had become. This woman was something else entirely, a fusion of all my past selves, hardened by betrayal and sharpened by a singular purpose. As I walked away from the table, I could hear the agents beginning their rehearsed lines. "Mr. Thorne, Ms. Sokolov, we need you to come with us." But I did not look back. I did not need to. Everything that was about to unfold had been meticulously planned over the last 6 months. The head waiter handed me my coat with a knowing, conspiratorial smile. He had been well compensated for his role tonight, ensuring our table was perfectly positioned directly in the view of the restaurant's high-definition security cameras. Every word spoken, every gesture made, every document I presented had been carefully recorded, providing yet more evidence for the prosecution. Once in my car, I pulled out my secure burner phone and sent a single text message to David, my old colleague from the DOJ. Checkmate. Within minutes, encrypted digital copies of all of Summit Dynamics' fraudulent transactions would be leaked to every major financial news outlet in the world. The morning's headlines were already written. But this plan had not been born from a sudden flash of inspiration. No, it had taken shape slowly, painfully, during those long, sleepless nights after I first uncovered Mark's deception. I remember the exact moment, finding a receipt for a sapphire bracelet I had never received, dated on our previous anniversary. That one single arrogant slip-up had unraveled everything. I gave myself 1 week to grieve, 7 days of silent tears and simmering rage, all hidden behind closed doors. On the 8th day, I started to plan. The very first step had been reaching out to David. I met him for coffee in a quiet, unassuming cafe 3 towns over. "I need surveillance," I told him, my voice low and urgent. "Everything you can get on Mark Thorne and the financial movements of Summit Dynamics." David had been hesitant at first. "Sarah, this isn't just about him cheating, is it?" he had asked, studying my face with the keen eye of a seasoned investigator. "It never is with men like Mark," I had replied. "Give me 2 months. I will prove to you there is something much bigger going on." Those 2 months were a masterclass in deception. While Mark thought I was throwing myself into my work to cope with our crumbling marriage, I was actually building a case against him. Every late night I spent at my office was dedicated to tracing money trails, documenting suspicious wire transfers, and connecting dots that slowly painted a damning portrait of massive corporate fraud. I had hired private investigators to track both Mark and his mistress, planted listening devices in their favorite restaurants and hotel suites, and gained access to their private communications through entirely legal channels. It is amazing what a worried wife can accomplish with a top-tier lawyer and credible evidence of suspected financial crime. The real breakthrough came when I uncovered Tiffany's true identity. Svetlana Sokolov was not just a con artist. She was a known associate of several Eastern European financial crime syndicates. That discovery led to a clandestine meeting in a dimly lit parking garage, a scene straight out of a spy thriller. "I can offer you full immunity," I had told her 3 months ago, watching her carefully. "Complete witness protection, a new identity, a clean slate. All you have to do is help me prove what Mark is doing." Svetlana had been far smarter than Mark ever gave her credit for. She saw the writing on the wall, understood that her time as his pet was limited, and agreed to play her part. She continued her role as the infatuated mistress while meticulously documenting every illegal transaction Mark asked her to handle. Tonight's dinner had not been Mark's idea at all. I had orchestrated the entire thing, using Svetlana to plant the suggestion in his mind, the restaurant, the timing, even the cruel theatrical way he chose to end our marriage. Mark's monumental ego had made him believe it was all his own brilliant plan. Every step had been calculated, every reaction anticipated. I had known Mark would choose to humiliate me in a public forum. His narcissism would allow for nothing less dramatic. I had known Svetlana would wear my grandmother's bracelet. I had planted it in Mark's desk myself, knowing he would be unable to resist giving it to her as a twisted trophy. As I drove home now, I thought about the evidence folders currently being delivered by courier to the homes of every single board member. I pictured the international wire transfers being flagged and frozen by financial institutions across the globe, the arrest warrants being executed at multiple locations. In just a few hours, the empire Mark had stolen from his own father would be nothing but dust. My phone buzzed with an incoming text from David. All primary targets in custody. Evidence secured. Everything was proceeding exactly as I had planned. I pulled into my driveway, the same one Mark and I had shared for over a decade, and smiled at the sheer irony of it all. While he had been planning this grand gesture of humiliation, I had been setting the final pieces of my own elaborate trap right under his nose, in our own home. Another text from David lit up my phone's screen. Package 2 delivered. Board members are responding. Everything was unfolding with the precision of a Swiss watch. The evidence I had painstakingly gathered had not just been sent to the Department of Justice. I had made sure every board member of Summit Dynamics received a personalized package containing specific proof of how Mark's actions had directly and negatively impacted their own personal interests. Old Mr. Thompson would be particularly interested to learn how Mark had manipulated his family's shares to devalue them before a planned buyback. Mrs. Rodriguez would be furious when she saw the falsified Asian market reports that had cost her millions. Each package was tailored to hit where it would hurt the most, ensuring the board would turn on Mark with a vengeance. I entered our house, soon to be just my house, and walked directly to Mark's study. The wall safe hidden behind his prized, and as I had discovered, fake Monet painting, held more than just documents. I spun the dial with practiced ease. He never knew I had learned the combination months ago by simply watching him open it one night on a hidden camera while he thought I was asleep. Inside lay the final pieces of the puzzle, the original authentic documents proving that his father had never actually signed over full control of the company. Mark had forged the transfers, taking cruel advantage of his father's declining health. I had found them 3 weeks ago but had left them in place, knowing tonight would be the perfect time for their official discovery. The FBI would be here within the hour with a search warrant. They would find exactly what they were looking for, exactly where I had ensured it would be: the safe. Mark's laptop with its hidden encrypted partition, the backup hard drive cleverly disguised as a desk coaster, all of it would tell the same damning story. I moved through the house to our bedroom, the room we had shared until Mark started spending most of his nights at his executive apartment downtown. I opened my jewelry box. The empty space where my grandmother's sapphire bracelet had once rested seemed to mock Mark's breathtaking arrogance. He had never for a moment suspected that I had been the one to plant it in his desk, knowing he would give it to Svetlana as a symbol of his conquest. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Svetlana's burner phone, secondary files sent to prosecutors, en route to Safe House. She had played her part flawlessly, documenting every illicit transaction Mark had ever trusted her with. Her own criminal past had made her the ideal candidate for turning state's evidence, and her immunity deal would ensure she stayed far away from any of the fallout. I changed out of my emerald green dress, carefully hanging it in the closet. This dress had been more than just an outfit. It had been a costume for the single most important performance of my life. Every last detail of tonight had been choreographed. The wine I had ordered, Mark's favorite, was meant to lower his guard. The table location, in full view of multiple security cameras, even the timing of the federal agent's arrival. The foundation for this evening had been laid months ago. Each business trip Mark took had given me the time and space I needed to piece together the full scope of his criminal empire. Every late night he spent with Svetlana had allowed me to access his office, copy files, and plant evidence. His own hubris had made him careless, leaving a trail of digital breadcrumbs that any skilled investigator could easily follow. I poured myself a glass of wine. Not the overpriced Napa Valley Cabernet from dinner, but a simple, robust Merlot I actually enjoyed, and settled into my home office. My laptop was already alive with multiple email notifications. Board members responding with outrage to the evidence. Financial alerts as accounts were systematically frozen. News organizations already picking up the first whispers of the scandal. The perfect setup was not just about gathering evidence or timing its release. It was about understanding people, their weaknesses, their motivations, their breaking points. Mark had always underestimated me, seeing only what he wanted to see, the trophy wife who had given up a promising career in law enforcement to be with him. He never realized that I had never stopped being an investigator. I had simply found a much more personal case to solve. My phone lit up with a video call from David. The timing was perfect, exactly 1 hour after I had walked out of the Golden Oak. "It is done," he said, his face illuminated by the flashing red and blue police lights in the background. "Mark Thorne is in federal custody. You should have seen his face when we found the hidden compartment in his office desk." I took another slow sip of wine, savoring the moment. And Svetlana? Safely in witness protection, he confirmed. She has already given her official, detailed statement about Mark's deep involvement in the embezzlement scheme. The evidence she provided is a perfect match with your own documentation. On my laptop screen, news alerts were already starting to pop up in a cascade. Summit Dynamics CEO arrested, screamed one headline. Massive financial fraud. Uncovered at Summit Dynamics, declared another. By morning, the financial news channels would be running this story on a continuous loop. I switched to the live security feed I had installed in Mark's office months ago. Federal agents were methodically going through every drawer, every file, finding each piece of incriminating evidence exactly where I had ensured it would be. The look of utter defeat on Mark's face as they had led him out in handcuffs was something I knew I would remember for the rest of my life. The board members? I asked David. All 9 of them have pledged their full and complete cooperation with the investigation, he said. Mrs. Rodriguez was particularly vocal about pressing for the maximum possible charges after she saw those falsified Asian market reports. Everything was falling into place exactly as I had designed it. The execution of this plan had been flawless, each component triggering the next like a line of perfectly arranged dominoes. Mark's pathetic attempt to humiliate me at our anniversary dinner had become the very catalyst for his own spectacular destruction. My security system chimed, alerting me to movement at the front door, right on schedule, the local police arriving with a search warrant for our home. I buzzed them in, ready to play the part of the shocked, cooperative, and heartbroken wife to perfection. Mrs. Thorne, the lead detective said gently, we have a warrant to search the premises. We understand this must be a terrible shock. I let my voice tremble just slightly. Of course, officer. Please do whatever you need to do. I cannot believe it. All those late nights. He said he was working. They moved through the house with quiet efficiency, finding the mountain of damning evidence in Mark's study, exactly where it needed to be. The false bottom in his desk drawer, the encrypted files on his personal laptop, the offshore account documents hidden within his rare book collection. Each discovery was another nail in the coffin of his defense. My phone buzzed one last time. It was from Svetlana's burner number. Package delivered to DA's office. All accounts transferred as planned. I am going dark now. Thank you for the second chance. I deleted the message immediately. She had been the perfect accomplice, playing her role as the homewrecker while secretly helping to gather the very evidence that would bring Mark down. The police were now in Mark's home office, photographing everything. I watched as they discovered the fake Monet, another piece of evidence that would lead to additional charges of art fraud. Mark's perfect world was unraveling thread by thread, and he was completely powerless to stop it. Mrs. Thorne, the detective called out, we found something interesting in your husband's safe. Did you know about these documents? I walked over, feigning utter confusion. I never knew the combination. Mark was always very private about his business matters. The detective held up the forged documents, the ones showing Mark's theft of company control from his own father. My anonymous tip about those papers would hit the district attorney's desk tomorrow morning, adding another thick layer to the prosecution's already airtight case. No, I whispered, letting my eyes fill with tears. I had no idea. All this time. As the officers continued their methodical search, I retreated to the kitchen, ostensibly to make coffee for everyone. In reality, I just needed a quiet moment to appreciate how perfectly, how beautifully everything had aligned. Dawn broke over the city as the last police car finally pulled away from my driveway. The morning news was already running the story on every channel. Summit Dynamics CEO arrested in massive fraud scheme. The financial networks were in a frenzy, their ticker tapes a sea of blood red as the company's stock prices plummeted. I sat alone in my kitchen, watching the chaos unfold on multiple screens. My phone had not stopped buzzing since sunrise, Reporters, board members, old colleagues from my law firm, all of them wanting to know how I was handling the shocking revelation of my husband's crimes. If only they knew. The first call I decided to take was from Mark's father, Robert. Despite his failing health, his voice was sharp with a mixture of anger and profound disappointment. "I warned him about you," the old man said, forgoing any preamble. "I told him never to trust a woman with your background, but I never imagined he would betray me like this." "I am so sorry, Robert," I replied, letting genuine sympathy color my voice. Mark's father had always been kind to me, even while simultaneously cautioning his son against our marriage. "If there is anything at all I can do—" "You have done enough," he said quietly, but there was a new tone in his voice. "The board is meeting in an hour. We are going to need an interim CEO to handle this crisis." I smiled into my coffee cup, right on schedule. The aftermath was spreading like ripples in a pond. Mark's closest allies at Summit Dynamics were all being suspended, pending internal investigations. The company's stock had dropped a staggering 40% in pre-market trading. International partners were already distancing themselves, canceling major deals that Mark had personally orchestrated. My laptop pinged with an email from Svetlana's lawyer. Her official detailed statement had been filed with the DA's office. She had laid out every transaction, every illegal deal, every single instance of fraud she had witnessed. Her testimony alone would be devastating to Mark's defense. The doorbell rang. It was David, arriving with official papers. "The DOJ wants to take your formal statement," he said, settling into my kitchen with his own cup of coffee. "They are building a rock-solid, ironclad case. Mark hasn't said a single word since his arrest, but with the mountain of evidence we have, he doesn't need to." I nodded, reviewing the preliminary list of charges: fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, tax evasion, corporate espionage. Each charge was backed by meticulous, irrefutable documentation. Each piece of evidence had been properly obtained and cataloged. "His lawyers?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Dropped him this morning," David confirmed. "Apparently, they found out about the forged documents transferring company control from his father. They don't want any part of this mess." The morning papers arrived, and I spread them across my kitchen island. Each headline was more damning than the last. Financial journalists were already calling it the scandal of the decade. Expert commentators were predicting a prison sentence measured in decades, not years. My phone buzzed again, a text from Mark's sister, Catherine. I always knew he would self-destruct eventually. "Are you okay?" I left it unanswered. Catherine had been another unwitting player in this game, her genuine concern for my well-being over the past few months helping to mask my deep investigation. The aftermath was not just professional. Mark's entire social circle was disintegrating. His country club membership was revoked. His charity board positions were resigned. The carefully cultivated image he had spent years building was crumbling into dust in a matter of hours. "The press will want a statement," David reminded me gently. "They will get one," I assured him. The devoted wife, shocked and devastated by her husband's betrayal, standing ready to cooperate fully with the authorities. My performance at the Golden Oak had been just the beginning. Now came the harder part, maintaining the facade of the wronged wife, playing my role in the public fallout of Mark's downfall. A final text came through from an unknown number. It was Svetlana. One last time. Forever grateful. Good luck. Then her number went dark as she disappeared into her new life under witness protection. I looked around my kitchen at the empire of evidence I had built to destroy the man who had thought he could simply discard me. The aftermath was still unfolding, but the hardest part was done. Mark had never seen it coming, not until it was far, far too late. 1 month later, I sat in the gallery of the federal courthouse, watching as Mark was led in, wearing a drab orange jumpsuit, a far cry from his usual bespoke suits. He looked older, smaller, utterly defeated. His carefully maintained, arrogant appearance now showed deep lines of strain. He did not look at me, but I made sure he could feel my presence, a silent observer at his final judgment. The hearing was brief but decisive. Mark had finally agreed to a plea deal, facing 25 years in federal prison and the complete forfeiture of all assets gained through illegal means. His lawyers had advised him it was the best offer he would ever get, given the insurmountable mountain of evidence against him. "Your Honor," the prosecutor announced, "we have reached an agreement with the defendant. In exchange for his full cooperation in several ongoing investigations, Mr. Thorne will plead guilty to all charges." I watched Mark's shoulders slump as the judge reviewed the terms. His father sat 2 rows behind him, looking more devastated than angry now. The mighty Thorne family name, built over generations, had been utterly destroyed in a matter of weeks. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed around me, hungry for a statement from the devoted wife who'd been so tragically blindsided by her husband's crimes. I played my part to perfection. I am still trying to process everything I told them, letting my voice catch with just the right amount of emotion. The Mark I knew, or the man I thought I knew. I just hope that the truth brings some measure of closure to everyone who was affected by his actions. Later that evening, I sat in what was now officially my house. The plea deal had included Mark forfeiting all claims to our joint assets. I opened a special bottle of wine I had been saving, not the overpriced Cabernet Mark had preferred, but a simple Californian red I had discovered on our very first date, long before he had tried to remake me into his perfect, polished corporate wife. My phone lit up with a message from Robert Thorne. "The board has reviewed your proposal. We would like to meet tomorrow to discuss your role in rebuilding the company." Everything had come full circle. Mark had once pushed me away from any corporate oversight. Now I was being asked to lead the effort to resurrect Summit Dynamics from the ashes of his crimes. His own father, who had once warned him about my background in financial crime investigation, now saw that very background as the company's only salvation. Svetlana, I had learned, was thriving in her new life. Her immunity deal had secured her freedom and a fresh start. The last update from her handler indicated she had enrolled in college, pursuing a legitimate career far from the cons of her past. Sometimes, the best revenge includes allowing others a chance at their own redemption. I walked through the house, finally free to make the changes I'd always wanted. Mark's pretentious art collection, mostly forgeries as the investigators had discovered, would be replaced with pieces I actually loved. His study, that fortress of secrets and lies, would become my new home office. The media had already dubbed it the Thorne Scandal, but they had all missed the real story. They focused on the financial crimes, the corporate espionage, the dramatic arrest. None of them ever suspected that the entire affair had been meticulously orchestrated by the quiet, unassuming wife they depicted as just another victim of Mark's deceptions. I opened my laptop one last time that evening, reviewing the final piece of my resolution. My official statement accepting the position of Chief Compliance Officer at Summit Dynamics was ready to be released tomorrow. The board had been eager to demonstrate their renewed commitment to transparency and reform. And who better to prevent future fraud than the very woman who had so brilliantly exposed the last one? Mark's last words to me had been at the Golden Oak. Meet the replacement. He never realized that I was the one who was about to be upgraded, from trophy wife to corporate savior, from victim to victor. The resolution was not just about justice or revenge, it was about transformation. Mark had tried to diminish me, to make me smaller, to erase me. Instead, he had given me the perfect opportunity to reveal my true self. As I got ready for bed that night, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back was not the same one who had endured that humiliating anniversary dinner. She was stronger, sharper, more complete. Mark had wanted to write my ending, but instead he had only set the stage for my new beginning. Some people say revenge is a dish best served cold. I disagree. The best revenge is served at precisely the right temperature, with perfect timing and garnished with absolute, undeniable victory. The end of the story